So we're here live at Mobile Innovation Week. It's day one of the Mobile Biz Boot Camp, and I'm sitting next to Duncan Stewart, who's the Director of Research, Deloitte Canada Technology, Media and Telecommunications. Is that actually what it says on your business card?
No, you missed clean tech and life sciences. Next week, I'm actually taking over the rest of the Canadian economy, so, you know.
Yeah, so it's your title shifts based on where you're speaking, is that?
No, I spend probably 90% of my time looking at tech, media, and telecom, but clean tech and life sciences are interesting areas with lots of new technologies coming out, which often cross over into the area of technology.
Yeah, and so today you were specifically talking about mobile.
Yes.
And you were talking specifically about the next 24 months in mobile and what are the trends that we're seeing?
So there's a lot of different pieces. I mean, I gave a 30-minute talk that could have been, and has been, if you don't stop me, a 3-hour talk. What are the 3-second version of that?
Yep.
One of them is that these puppies are pretty important. Smartphones are going to be big. They're already big. They're going to be bigger. A few years from now, they're probably going to be getting pretty close to 50% of all the phones sold in the world. If there's a 1.5 billion phones selling and 700 million of these puppies, that's a really big, important market. But there's a couple things we need to keep in mind about smartphones, just right off the bat. They're not going to 100%. There are a lot of people in China and India and so forth. They don't want to spend, you know, their annual income on a phone. I don't know why. They're crazy. They don't understand progress, I guess. Maybe clean water and electricity first. So thinking about smartphones as 100% of the market is wrong. There will continue to be dumb phones for the future. Next, one of the questions that people keep asking is, what's the future of the smartphone? Is it going to be like the future of the PC, where we saw, you know, in the early days, 8, 9, 10 different versions of personal computers with different operating systems, and then by 1995, there was one. It was on Microsoft at 96% market share. Are we going to see the same thing in the smartphone? And is it going to be Google Android? And our research shows that at least for the foreseeable future, there's going to be a multiplicity of different operating systems. It's not going to be like the Microsoft monopoly. We're going to have Android. They're going to do great. Don't get me wrong. Apple's going to continue to do great. I suspect these BlackBerry kids are still going to be in there punching a year or two from now with maybe not 50% of the U.S. market, but 30, 35. Worldwide, 10%, you know, kind of stuff. So we see tremendous progress in the smartphone market, but it's important to understand that 3 or 4 years from now, it's going to look an awful lot like it does today, only bigger. One of the other big things, though, that we talked about in there was the idea of mobile technology and 4G networks. And the last time we got a different G, when we went from 2G to 3G, we had this explosion of capacity, so much so that carriers wanted us to use more data on their networks. It's not going to happen with 4G. 4G technologies are faster than 3G, but they're only 5, 6, 7 times faster, and the capacity of the network is only 5 or 6 times, which means that because we are going to need between 50 and 100 times more data across this network, the networks of the future are going to be more congested, not less. And that's kind of a twist from what we've seen in the past.
So what's the impact as we watch the progression of smartphones and data consumption? I mean, smartphone use goes up at 50% of all phones out there. 4G, more data consumption. You know, everybody's complaining already about the congestion on the networks. What's going to happen at that point?
It's easy. I'll just quote Kent Brockman. We're all doomed, people. We're not doomed. We're not doomed. But we certainly are going to be in a situation where if you think your phone bill is complex and expensive today, it doesn't get cheaper when 100 times as much data goes across those networks. Now, making phone calls probably may even become free. Phone's easy. Making a phone call uses no megabits. It's kilobits.
Yeah.
You want to watch streaming high-def 3D video on your tablet? You're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
You want to do it in New York? You want to do it in rush hour? You're going to pay for that. On the other hand, you are living in Brampton and you want to look at the odd web page? No problem. The networks will work in such a fashion as the City of London does. You want to drive into the center of the city at rush hour? You pay for it.
Yeah.
And we think that's going to, and this isn't because of big evil phone companies, and this isn't because of ineffective regulators, it's the law of supply and demand.
So do you think that there's a threshold that, I mean, we're going to be paying more for mobile, basically it's burstable. You use it during the high peak or peak hours, you're going to be paying more. You use it, you know, between midnight and 3 in the morning.
Right.
You might not pay as much. But do you think that the wireless bills that people are paying, the mobile bills, are going to go up as a result?
Yes, and we are not getting that much richer. Where does the money come from? This lovely old BlackBerry. But the reason I don't cycle up on it is that I don't need to, but that's fine. This tablet, this is about $300. This is about $600. The laptop that Deloitte paid for me is about $2,500. Right. We used to buy new tablets new PCs every 2.5 years. Yep. With netbooks, with smartphones, with tablets, all of a sudden the refresh cycle extends. So instead of spending $2,500 every 2 years, i.e. $1,250 a year on a new device, I'll buy a $600 device, and with the other $600 in my jeans, I'll spend $300 more on mobile. I'm still $300 to the good. Our bills go up because our device costs are going down.
Okay, so and that's the way that it's going to be done. It's not going to be subsidized by anything. Do you think that there's going to be a new business model or business layer on top of these services?
You can't get there. It's dollars versus dimes versus pennies. Can I subsidize one of these devices by selling ads that people see when they watch videos? Pennies come in, dollars go out. The business model doesn't work. Will there be, on the other hand, very low-cost phones that perhaps are subsidized, netbooks perhaps as their price comes down, but by and large it won't be a subsidy model. We are going to move away from bundled devices, and more, 5 years from now, I don't think you're going to do the thing where you buy a $600 phone for $199 and you're locked in for 3 years. Right. I think it's very much going to be the way the iPad works. You go month to month. This one, I can't even, people complain about their roaming bills. Have you tried taking yours to the States?
Yeah.
So you've taken it to the States?
I have.
And it doesn't work in the States.
No.
You got to take the SIM card, but that's what they do in Europe.
Yeah.
You take the SIM card, micro SIM,
and you
put
in
new
the
micro SIM, and for $25, instead of a $500 roaming bill, for $25 I got, 2 gig of data?
You did, and
Huge.
you could use a Skype out number, and
all great.
Yeah. So now let's shift a little bit away from the actual physical side, but into what we're seeing now is this gold rush happen with applications and application development and app stores and app world, and what happens there over the next 24 months? People aren't making any money.
Okay, thank you. Gold rush.
Yeah.
In the gold rush, Yukon, California, tens of thousands of people went out.
Yeah.
Dozens made money.
Yeah.
So we've got the same problem in the App Store. Apple's got 150,000 apps in the App Store. That's great. That's great. I think there's 350,000 words in the Oxford English Dictionary, 90% of which I don't even know what they mean.
That's why I was going to say 99%.
99. We use, apparently in day-to-day conversation, about 1,000 words. Right. 5,000 if we're real smart, 15 over our lifetime. Having 150,000 apps or 60,000 apps, it doesn't really make a big difference. So the other real problem I have, and this is where my math should be slightly better, if there's 150,000 apps and each one costs $1,000 to develop,
at a minimum,
that's $150 million of sunk cost.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost $1,000. I've seen estimates it costs $50,000. Yep. So that makes that a $7.5 billion investment. Total revenues from all apps this year are way under $1 billion. Yeah. So the ROI on this is, and these people haven't even made their money back, right? No. There's no profit.
Some have. Some have made money. Right?
I'm looking at the industry in aggregate.
Yeah.
When you look at all of them, not all of those apps cost 50 grand. Some of them were thrown together with spit and baling wire and cost $8. But nonetheless, the idea that the ROI on the app industry is not high enough to call it a successful gold rush. I think when we look at this, apps are great, apps are cool, apps aren't where the money is. Apple is in the business of selling these boxes, and they are grotesquely, and I mean that in the best way, grotesquely profitable at doing that. This is where the money is. Carriers make pretty good money. Yep. App stores, app development, it's not unlike being a Canadian poet. I can say this, my sister's a Canadian poet. She's got 3 books and a number of prizes out. She doesn't make a lot of money from Canadian poetry. She loves it. It's satisfying, but it doesn't put a lot of pizza on the table.
So what happens then? So this dies down over the next 24 months? Is it because everybody's been selling these things? There's an app for that. Apple's campaign was all around the application.
That's because it didn't cost them any money.
Well, it didn't, right? And they're making money off of by promoting those successful applications. But then Android got into it, the Android marketplace. RIM got into App World as well. So everybody's followed suit. How quickly does that get out of the vernacular and into the real use of these tools, or the next business model?
I think the way to think about it isn't that it changes in terms of the number of titles. I don't know how many books are written each year. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Almost none of them make any money.
Yep.
just because they don't make money doesn't mean the books don't get written. There will continue to be apps written. If the App Store is 1 million titles a year from now, 2 years, 10 years, whatever, wouldn't surprise me. Are we talking about money or are we talking about titles? Money starts going for the stuff that's loaded on this by your company, your bank's IT department, and it's the enterprise apps, it's the stuff that isn't free, it's the stuff that costs 15, 20, 30 bucks, probably not dissimilar from the PC world.
Yeah.
In the early days of the PC world, there were a lot of like $9 word processors that weren't any good. Then you started paying 50 and 100 bucks, and you got some pretty amazing functionality for it.
Yeah, you really did. One last question around this. You led almost perfectly into it, which is that the democratization of software making. So at one point, we felt very comfortable spending $200 or $300 on an Office product or $60 on a game for your PC. But now, as a result of the tablets, the smartphones, we contemplate $1.99 or $9.99 as a big spend.
Pages is $9.99, right?
Yeah, $9.99. So that used to cost $100, right, on a PC. What's the impact of that on future software development?
It's not just software; it's the hardware. I'm capable of running 90% plus of my Deloitte business off of a $600 toy, not a $2,000 machine. Plus, I don't need to upgrade this every year or 2 years. The hardware stuff is coming down by between 50 and 75%. The software stuff is coming down
quite considerably,
75 and 90%, let alone open source and Linux and all that great stuff.
Yep.
The world out there from I am a classic software vendor is challenging because the price point is coming down. Now, it isn't coming down everywhere, and it won't come down ubiquitously in all markets at all times. But if I roll the tape forward 10 years from now, if you told me that the global software market 10 years from now, in inflation-adjusted terms, was smaller than it is today, I wouldn't argue with you.
Yeah. That's great. Listen, thank you very much. We've been speaking with Duncan. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.